Hi, everyone. Good evening. Carl Steinbeck here. Friday night. Just want to cover day 8 of the Massachusetts versus Karen Reed murder trial there in Denham Courthouse in Massachusetts. And today we had the third day. It wasn't 3 complete days, but third day of Jen McCabe and her testimony. And third day was another doozy. And it was really astounding and bizarre, the things she said and the way she came across. So yes, it was very nuts today, and but it's another big win day for the defense, and this is something that every day we're looking at. This defense is scoring major hits, and so it's pretty much on track. I mean, we're talking about 2 weeks into this case, and the prosecution is pretty much doing major damage to themselves with their own witnesses. So, and it's only going to get worse if they bring some of these other folks that are at 34 Fairview. So let's go ahead and jump right into it here. I'm going to start off where we had Jen McCabe testifying this morning. She, as I say, she did wrap it up today. So she was on this witness stand a whole lot in this case. Like I said, she was a central figure of this whole case for the defense. The whole defense theory flows through her. And that's exactly what I think has happened, their defense theory and how all this could be possible, or Karen Reed is not guilty and there's some other stuff going on. And they don't have to explain what went on and how John O'Keefe was killed. All they have to do is show that there's reasonable doubts if you think Karen did it. And oh, by the way, there's a lot of other explanations that the state can't even come up with a theory. The state's theory is a moving target. It was a moving target from the first trial, from the opening statement to the closing argument. Their theory changed during that in the timeline. The timeline is now changed again. Jen McCabe is completely trying to backpedal and claim that she doesn't know about the timing and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to get into all that here while she's testifying. But I think that if the jury can't see that her credibility is actually just blown to smithereens, I don't know what they're on up there, because they would have to be completely their minds would be obliterated. So this thing was an absolute train wreck, the way she came across today. And so let's jump right to it here. If you do have questions as I'm going through here, go ahead and throw them out there. Red emojis are the quickest way I can find them. So with that, let's proceed to right here. There's
3 questions. Was everyone able to follow my instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left?
They're not going to admit it if they did.
Yes, everyone said yes and nodded affirmatively. Were you also
They're
able
probably
to
disgusted
follow
with
the
this behavior of
instructions
the
and
court.
refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Yes. Everyone said yes and nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left on Wednesday? No. Everyone said no, it shook their heads. So today is a full day. We will be recessing this afternoon around 3:40.
There wasn't any controversy whatsoever in trial 1. Yeah, the dog was in the house. He's either in the bedroom or in the closet there. That's where it always sleeps. It's like routine. People with dogs, especially, they're in routines all the time. And it's so interesting because when I was talking about this a few hours ago, when Leslie and I were outside, I was mentioning how Jen, she didn't even holler at the window when she's standing right outside there. She could have been on 901 and said, "Hey, Brian, wake up." And I didn't even yell any louder than that. And one of the big neighbor's dogs started barking away. So imagine a voice that's even known. This dog would know her voice. And if she's crying out, asking for help outside, the dog would have woken up Brian if he's too much of a deep sleeper. So anyway, I thought that was a key point that even the neighbor's dog here corroborated. Anyway, so thanks for this question here. Yeah, they're going to be able to bring this out. Hopefully they'll bring it out. I think they will. I don't think they're going to miss that. Question here from Hey, Mr. Swampy. Jen insisted there was no dog in Albert's bedroom. Brian testified in trial 1 that Chloe was in the bedroom with him and his wife during the morning John O'Keefe was found. Can defense refer to BA's prior? Yeah, I think they will. I think the dog plays a big key in this whole thing. The suspicious circumstances surrounding the dog and where that dog disappeared to that night and wasn't barking. It's huge issue.
All right, Mr. Jackson, if you go to the podium as soon as Ms. McCabe comes in. May we have Ms. McCabe? Please.
Can you imagine what Karen is having to go through, seeing all these people up there lying day in, day out?
Swear that the testimony you shall give to the court and the jury in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes.
All right, good morning. Good morning.
Well, keep in mind, she says there's a guy in the snow, passed out in the snow. What does that sound like? The guy's a drunk and he's just sort of passed out from over drinking. Doesn't say that his body's basically dead laying alongside the road there. And then, oh, by the way, this is my friend, a cop. And we'll get to that later. So this thing, what you're saying here, Corey, you still can't get over the fact that Jen didn't say my good friend John O'Keefe, a Boston officer, is down, hurt, and dying on another cop's lawn. She just says a guy, and what in the world? Yeah, exactly. This is huge. I'm glad they finally brought it out today.
All right, Mr. Jackson, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. McCabe.
Good morning.
I'd like to draw your attention back to the time that you were watching the SUV out of the front door, through the front door at 34 Fairview. You have that time in mind?
I never watched it, but I went and looked at it.
Saw it.
Saw it, yes.
All right. I just want to clear up one of the time frames that you indicated you last saw that SUV. You saw that SUV for the final time at 12:45 a.m., correct? It was up past the flagpole at that point.
Can't be sure of a specific time.
You indicated.
Oh my God! There's no question about the time. She established a timeline that same morning, and now she's trying to backpedal it.
Did at a prior hearing in June of 2023 that you in fact did see it for the last time at 12:45, and you know that because of a text message that you sent at 12:45. Is that right?
I did send a text message at 12:45. That is correct.
Did you say, quote, and by the way, for court and counsel, this is at 782 lines 24 through 25, going to 783 lines 1 through 13 or so. Actually, 1 through 3. It's 782 going to 783. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Actually, Ms. McCabe, and for court and counsel, I'm going to back up just a little bit up to line 20. You stated, quote, "So I think my husband and I were talking just like about what they were doing." And then I sat back down, and then at one point I think I said hello. And then I said at 12:42, "Where are you?" And then flip, I don't know if that's my last text or if I did one more. Yeah, 12:45, hello, because they were still there.
You should.
And then question, so the dark SUV was still outside the house at 12:45. Answer, at 12:45. Do you remember that question and answer colloquy back in June of 2023?
I've been asked a number of questions, specifically those words, no. I do remember.
She just is backpedaling, claiming amnesia for so many things that are critical. And this is the whole focus of the case for the defense. They need to zero in on what was going on with this timeline. And she's the one that's placing Jen there. She's going to be Karen there in the car at 12:45. And then she says after 12:45, she looked again and the car was gone. So right there, she would have been looking right at the place where supposedly John O'Keefe was laying for almost 5 hours or more than 5 hours. So just all over the map. She's just completely spinning. And it is so obvious, I think, for the jury there, unless they're half asleep, that she just does not want to admit that her timeline, she said before, that she's locked and loaded in, she's completely trying to just cast away now.
Or testifying, I believe I said, I think in there. I think that, and to be honest, I'm not sure of exactly the times. I didn't pay close attention to when I was texting and when I was sitting. I was going back and forth to the door.
But in June of 2023, at a hearing under oath, you did say that it was at 12:45 that you last saw the vehicle.
I believe I said, I think.
Refresh your recollection, take a look at the transcript I just read from.
I believe the word I think is in there.
You believe, but you're not sure.
Okay, I'll look at it.
Refresh your recollection.
Sure.
May I approach?
Yes.
Same picture.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Yep. That's what anybody else would have done.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Does that refresh your recollection, Ms. McCabe, what you said in June of 2023 about seeing the SUV at the location at 12:45?
I see what I read. Sorry. I saw what I just read. I don't remember my exact words of every testimony, but I did just read that. Yes.
And in fact, what you said back in June of 2023, quote, I don't know if it's my last text or if I did one more. Yeah, 12:45, hello, because they were still there, period, correct?
That's a part of what I said.
And then the question was, so the dark SUV was still outside the house at 12:45, answer at 12:45.
And then I said, I think my husband.
Hughes, you're asking what happened to Judge's law books. The shelf behind her is bare. Well, it's not like those books would help favorable rulings for Karen Reed, so they might as well take them away.
Deny. So there's more to that conversation.
Okay, what I read you is what the transcript indicates. You said on June 8th, 2023, correct?
Can you answer that? Is that correct?
That I saw it at that time.
Ask the question again.
Sure. That what you testified to in June of 2023 was you saw the SUV for the last time at 12:45. That's what you said, at least back then.
That's part of what I said.
I don't know if that's my last text or if I did one more. Yeah, 12:45, hello, because they were still there. Question, so the dark SUV was still outside outside the house at 12:45, answer at 12:45. That's what you actually testified to in June 2020.
That's what that says, correct.
Thank you. You've been asked about with whom you communicated first thing in the morning when you received that 4:53 a.m. call. There at that call and thereafter, shortly thereafter, within those next few minutes, correct?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, you were asked by Trooper Prince in a formal interview on February 1st, 2022. I know that was a while ago, but in that initial formal interview 3 days after the event, Trooper Prince, the female trooper, asked you who you called or who you communicated with during that important few minutes after you received the first phone call from Kaylee's phone, correct?
I'm not sure of our exact conversation, but she did ask me a number of questions.
Do you remember telling her, I spoke with Karen Reed, obviously.
Very true.
Again, I answered whatever question she asked me. So
Okay,
if she asked, I did speak with Karen Reed that morning, correct?
Okay, Ms. McCabe, my question is, did you tell Trooper Prince 3 days after the fact, I spoke with Karen Reed. Yes or no?
If you have a report, I don't remember the specifics. I met with many, many police officers.
Sure.
She's just trying to do this like fog of war type explanation, but where she's got so many people in the days after this happening, she just can't remember all the details, can't remember who she talked to, doesn't know timelines, all this kind of stuff. I mean, is this like, this is not a big deal to her, and yet she's hired a lawyer to represent her interests and help coach her on this, and yet she doesn't prepare, and yet her testimony completely drastically changes from last year to now. So that's something that it was never fully brought out by the defense. It's like, well, how did your testimony radically change so much? That was never brought out. But anyway, she self-destructed here on the stand over and over and over again. Yeah, it is so obvious she's lying.
Would it refresh your recollection to
I
look
agree.
at her report?
I'd like to take a look at it. Yes, thank you.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
they loved that timeline last year. They really thought Jenna was a great witness, being able to lock and load those
McCabe, you can-
timelines.
Familiarize yourself with that report, and there's a tab if that helps you, because
Okay.
it's somewhat lengthy.
Okay.
See if that refreshes your recollection.
It's true.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is so bizarre. I've never seen a witness look at their prior statements or statements about them and just say, no, that's not it. My memory's different and correct now. It wasn't correct back then, or whatever excuse she makes. It's really strange behavior. You don't come across credible when you do that. Your memory doesn't get better over time. We'll get to that.
May I approach?
Yes.
Jury's got to be out.
Did that refresh
Oh,
your
you got
recollection as to what you
Hank?
told Trooper Prince?
I know what happened, so I just answered
Yes or
the
no?
questions.
Yes or no? Does that refresh your recollection as to what you told Trooper Prince?
Yes,
Okay. You told Trooper Prince that you had a conversation on Kaylee's phone with Miss Reed, correct?
yes,
That you also called Julie Albert after you got off the phone with Miss Reed the first time.
yes.
And then thereafter, at some point, you talked to Tom Beatty, correct?
I never spoke with Tom.
I'm sorry, my mistake. I misspoke. You called Tom Beatty.
Yes, I
Did-
called Tom Beatty.
Did not get through to Tom Beatty.
I didn't. No one answered. Yes,
Then you spoke at the grand jury about the same issue. Who did you talk to and who did you call in those minutes after the initial call on Kaylee's phone, correct?
I'm going to object. I'd like to be heard.
All right, come on up.
All right, let me jump ahead here. I want to get through all this tonight, so defense was aggressive with sidebars. When there's objections, they need to get something in. So I think that was good to see. Could have done even more so.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
But overall,
Thank you.
good.
Ms. McCabe, you were also asked the same series of questions about, or a series of questions about the same events concerning that 4:53 phone call and the calls that you made shortly thereafter, correct?
yes,
And in that testimony, you also, consistent with what you said to Trooper Prince, said, I spoke with Karen Reed on Kaylee's phone. I then spoke with Julie Albert, or I called Julie Albert, and then I called Tom Beatty, correct?
I object.
That objection sustained.
What did you tell the grand jurors about who you called or who you attempted to communicate with in those first few minutes after that 4:53 a.m. call?
I don't know exactly what I said on that day, but I know who I spoke to.
You said on that day, you spoke to Karen Reed, correct?
On which day? What are we talking
The day of the grand jury.
Okay.
That would be April 26, 2022.
I don't have the paper in front of me, so I don't know my exact words.
Well, I'm not asking you for your exact words, but did you tell them, as you sit here, do you remember telling the grand jurors under questioning by the Commonwealth that you spoke with Karen Reed?
I spoke with Karen Reed that morning. Again, I've been at many grand juries and different things. So
Many grand juries. Well, then you have a lot of statements you can look over, transcripts you can look over. This is so much a sign. She doesn't want to be held to what she said in the first trial because she knows it helps Karen Reed. That's why she's backpedaling. That's why she wants to claim amnesia.
remember specifically, I don't remember specific questions and specific answers, but yes,
You did last year. Now suddenly you can't remember.
Karen Reed did call me that morning on Kaylee's phone.
My question is, what did you say to the grand jurors? And you're saying you don't remember?
What question are you asking me?
Whom did you attempt to communicate with in those first few minutes after you first received the phone call on Kaylee's phone?
If you're asking me now, I can answer you.
I'm asking
I don't remember this. I'm sorry. I don't remember the specifics. If you want to show me and then I can review it. I know the answer to the question. I'm just not sure of my exact words on that day.
I didn't ask you what your exact words were. I'm asking you about your memory. You're testifying based on your memory, Ms. McCabe, are you not?
Good point.
Okay.
All right, go ahead and answer that question. Are you answering these questions based on your memory, Ms. McCabe?
So I'm answering questions based on my memory of what happened on the 28th and the 29th. I've testified multiple times. I've been interviewed by multiple police officers. So to pinpoint one conversation.
And you know what? A liar can't remember all the details to make a story consistent. So if you're telling the truth, you don't have that problem. And this is what she's doing. But she knows what she said, and she knows exactly how her story is now radically changing.
Conversation is a bit of a challenge for me. But what I can tell you is what I remember from that day, which was, I'm sure, very similar to however I answered, because it's the same.
Yeah, Rose?
Yes.
Refresh your recollection and look at the
So, Mr.
transcript.
Brennan, would you address?
Sure. 188, 189, thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't get an answer to that question, Ms. McCabe. Would it refresh, I just have to do this for the record. Would it refresh your recollection to look at the transcript?
I'll look at it. Yes.
Yeah. So how does her story evolve, just as how convenient it is, because Hank is trying to come up with a different timeline now, right? So back last year, she was very locked in to the time sequence because she could always say, well, I remember after I texted him, I looked out the window. And now she's like, I don't remember any times. I don't know in relation to my texts, messages during the most critical time to figure out what was going on outside the house there at 34 Fairview. So I think it's very important on witnesses like this to zero in on what made your testimony change from last year to now? When did you realize what happened to make it change, in other words? And just pin them down on that and go it over and over again.
Okay.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
Did that refresh your recollection about?
She's trying to change her timeline to where it was very tightly scripted timeline that she came up with in hours on the 29th of January back in 2022. And now all of a sudden it's all foggy memory on dates and not sure what she's saying in different grand juries and to the police and all that. So it's just really like I say, a radical departure from last year's testimony.
What you told the grand jurors in terms of whom you communicated with or attempted to communicate with that morning.
Yes.
What did you tell the grand jurors?
I told them that I communicated with Miss Reed and that I called Julie Albert.
And Tom Beatty.
Oh, and Tom Beatty, I'm sorry.
Right. So in both of those statements, to Trooper Prince, when you were asked about your communications, and at the grand jury, by the way, at the grand jury, when you were asked who you communicated that morning, who you communicated with that morning, you didn't need to see a report, did you? You didn't ask to see a report like you're doing here.
Well, I'm asking because you're asking specific questions about what I said on a specific day. And depending on who's asking the question, they ask questions in a different manner. So the answer is always going to be the same. If you ask me who I spoke to, I'm always going to tell you I spoke to Miss Reed and Julie.
You know, she had a really good detailed memory for everything Karen did wrong. Everything Karen said that was incriminating, you know, even though she's making up stuff right now because she's trying to become a more important witness to the prosecution because she's had FBI showing up at her house and now she realizes the 227 search. So she has knowledge of something about John's fatal condition or near fatal condition at the time. And so she's looking really bad, looking really guilty on this thing. And so she's trying to make herself a better witness and more valuable to Hank Brennan, the prosecutor. So this is what she's trying to do everything she can to change her testimony to have it fit better with Hank's theory that John O'Keefe was struck sometime around the 12/31, 12/32 time frame.
Called Julie Albert and I called Tom Beatty. The answer is always the same, but the way the question asked and maybe some of the words that I use may be different. And I don't remember on specific days. I've been questioned many times, but the answers are always going to be the same. The wording may be different.
No, they're not.
You done? Finished? Is that answer?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm going to allow that, but let's move on.
I'm trying, all right. When the Commonwealth asked questions about who you contacted that morning at the grand jury, you didn't need to have your recollection refreshed with anything. You said, I talked to Karen Reed, I called Julie Albert, I called Tom Beatty, correct?
Correct.
And that's exactly what you told Trooper Prince as well. Karen Reed, Julie Albert, Tom Beatty. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
But you did make another phone call that morning that you left out of both of those statements, didn't you?
I'm not sure.
At 5:07 a.m., you called over to 34 Fairview, didn't you?
If it's in my phone record, then I must have.
It's in your
I
phone
can
records
remember
that you're aware of.
this is so much different than what she was last year. So anything that can make her look bad, she's claiming I don't remember.
Well, let me ask it a different way. You're aware that your phone records actually show that at 5:07, you called
Good
the
point.
34 Fairview Nicole Albert's phone, correct?
Correct.
It shows also that that call lasted 38 seconds, correct?
I'm not sure what it shows.
You actually spoke to your sister, Nicole, that morning?
I did not speak to my sister now.
So that 38-second call went to voicemail?
I'm not sure. All I can tell you is I never spoke to my sister Nicole that morning prior to waking her up.
But you do acknowledge that you made a phone call at 5:07 to Julie Albert. I'm sorry, to Nicole Albert, your sister, over at 34 Fairview in those early morning hours. Right?
Yes, I learned after. When I first.
Here's why she doesn't want to admit that, because she got the alert from Karen Reed. Hey, I'm looking for John. Where's John? And guess what? She then right away calls over to 34 Fairview and has a 38-second call. What do you think she was talking to them about? She could have found out right then if this was really something she didn't know anything about. She could have said, "Hey, have you seen John?" No, we haven't seen him, and then relayed that back to Karen, and they wouldn't have had to try to go to 34 Fairview. I guess they could have said maybe he's walked back and somewhere in the direction between the two houses. But this sort of what I think is very important for this is a 38-second call had enough information to convey, like to tell Jen if she wants to bring him come on over here looking for him, delay at least an hour. We need time to try to get this thing under control. So that's what I think the defense will be arguing in their closing, is that this is critical. She doesn't want to admit it. It helps show that they didn't have any reason to go over there to 34 Fairview. It supports the theory that they were stalling because something else was going on over with that house. And so this is very, very much a great point that they're bringing out, that, and she's not coming across credible on that timeline either. You don't have a 34-second another butt dial. There's so many things that she testifies to that she doesn't remember, or she swears she didn't do it, and yet phones us spontaneously, make calls and 38-second calls to your sister right when it's really convenient if there was something shady going down. So it just all adds up to supporting the defense theory, which is Karen didn't do it and something else happened.
First being questioned, it's days after. It was a chaotic morning. I remembered the waterfall, Julie, then Tom Beatty.
Now, she made it sound like she was so calm under pressure. Matt McCabe even says she's really calm under stress. And now she's saying how chaotic it is. Like she can't remember anything going on then and even now. And really, it's like, wow.
Calling to my sister wasn't as important ingrained in my mind at that point. No.
And then you testified at a grand jury, not hours or days later. You testified at a grand jury months later, correct?
Correct.
And at that grand jury, you also left out the fact that you contacted your sister, correct?
There's nothing nefarious. I remembered who I called. I didn't go back and look at phone records.
I didn't say it was nefarious. Why would you use the word nefarious?
That's
Because
word.
there's nothing about me calling my sister that is nefarious, and I feel like you're insinuating it might be, and it's not.
Did you use that word because it sounds nefarious?
No, I just use the word because I think that's how you're trying to portray something that is nothing.
Or
She
did
comes
you use that
across
word
like she's
because
on
you think that's how it's coming across. That's nefarious.
So
It seems like she's on some kind of medication of some sort. It just, her behavior is really weird, and it continues to get weird throughout the day.
Without contacting 34 period.
no, not at all.
Later that morning of January 29th, and by the way, you do acknowledge that your phone records show that you called at 5:07 a.m. to your sister's cell phone, correct?
I don't have them in front of me, but I believe that is correct. Yeah.
Okay. Were you calling your sister's phone to alert her of something? Is that why you called?
No.
Later that morning on January 29th, after those initial phone calls and after the scene had been cleared, at about 11:30 in the morning, you did have a formal interview with Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor, did you not?
I did, yes.
The day before yesterday, you testified that Karen Reed, actually I think it may have been Tuesday, you testified on direct examination that Karen Reed just showed up at your house screaming, correct?
Correct.
In point of fact, you told Michael Proctor in that 11:30 a.m. or thereabouts, that interview that morning, that on January 29th, when Karen was on the phone with you, you told her to come to your house. Isn't that true?
No, I never told her to come to my house.
She told you she wanted to go search for John, and instead of saying, I'll come meet you or I'll go wherever you want to go, you told her, no, come to my house and pick me up and we'll go together. Correct?
No, that's incorrect.
Do you remember talking to Trooper Proctor on that day?
I do, yes.
Do you remember exactly what you told him concerning the plan to either come to your house or go search for John?
There was never a plan for Karen to come to my
Do you
house.
remember exactly what you told him with that regard on that issue?
No, I don't.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at a police report that he drafted on that issue?
Well, those are his words or summary.
That's not my question. I know these are his words. He wrote it.
Mhm.
My question is, would it refresh your recollection about what you told him to take a look at his report?
I know what happened and I know what I told him. I don't know what's written in that report.
Yes or no?
I don't need to see the report now.
Because it would not refresh your recollection to see a report where he indicated that you told him that you directed Miss Reed to come to your house.
I object. The objection is sustained and going to strike that.
Well, she moved to strike it, and the prosecutor didn't ask to have it stricken. So here she is acting as the supervisor of Hank Brennan, the lead prosecutor on the case. And that'd be perfectly legitimate to show the person, hey, this is what's written in a report that the police wrote that interviewed you. Does this refresh your memory at all? And so anyway, they don't want the truth coming out. It's the only way they can try to win the case.
You also told, if I could be seen up.
Okay, we can decide that, please.
Oh, another sidebar. All right, somebody had a question. Is a sidebar on the record? It all depends. It all depends if the defense wants to assert it. Some judges or some jurisdictions, courts, it's sidebars will not be on the record. So on a murder case, I would think they're on the record. Everything's on the record. Some cases, though, if they're not on the record, like for jury selection and for sidebars, you lose your opportunity to appeal stuff if you don't have a court reporter there taking it down what's being said.
May I?
Sure.
Thank you. Ms. McCabe, during that same interview, you also told Trooper Proctor that while driving back to One Meadows after you had been picked up by Karen at your house, while driving back toward One Meadows, that's actually when Miss Reed told you she had broken her taillight, correct?
Miss Reed told me in the morning at my house.
Okay. I know that's what you're testifying to now.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm asking is, what did you tell Michael Proctor on January 29th? It's freshest in your mind.
That she had told me she had a cracked taillight when she called me.
You didn't tell him that she indicated she noticed her taillight had been damaged on the drive back to One Meadows after she got to your house?
She mentioned it then as well, but she also had told me when she was on the phone, that's why my husband yelled out that we shouldn't be driving with a cracked taillight.
But in fact, you did not tell Trooper Proctor that story. What you told him was she told you on the drive back to One Meadows after having picked you up, correct?
I told him she told me in the morning and on the drive back.
So if he didn't write that in his report, it's obviously incorrect. Gotcha.
Sustained.
Of course, it's the same.
Of course, that drive back to One Meadows would have been 5:30-ish or so, maybe even a little later, 5:35.
Approximately, yeah, I'm not sure.
Well after she backed out of the driveway and struck another vehicle at One Meadows, correct?
Do you know that?
No, I have no idea.
All right, next question.
Oh my!
Speaking of Trooper Proctor, when you first interviewed with him on that during that same interview on
Stay out
January
of it.
29th, you noticed that he was taking notes, obviously.
Yes, he was.
You told him about your observations of the taillight that day. Is that right?
I'd have to see the report, but I
Good one.
I told him about it, yes.
And that was literally the same day that you made the observations. Is that right?
Yes, it was.
He asked you to describe specifically what the taillight looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And you did so, correct?
Could I see the report?
All I'm asking right now, I've got.
Yeah, it's hard as a defense counsel. You got to be mentally alert, staying up on all of her bobbing and weaving, deceiving. It's like she is like so much though losing her credibility the way she's acting. She's thinking that she's coming across like she's got a one up on the defense counsel here. Like, I don't have to say anything. You got to try to prove it from what I said earlier. And even if you try to prove it, I'll just claim I don't know it. But you know what? You've absolutely imploded as a witness. You're completely destroyed your credibility. Juries will not believe somebody like her. She looks like a defendant being cross-examined. Like she's the defendant, not Karen. She doesn't look confident. She looks very angry. And she actually has this guilty aura about her.
To report.
Okay.
If you need it, I'll give it to you. I'm asking about your memory. Ms. McCabe, did you tell him about what the taillight looked like?
If he asked me what the taillight looked like, then I would have told him what it looked like, yes.
And what you told Trooper Proctor on that day is that you, quote, saw a crack in it. Is that right?
I believe I said it was broken and cracked and it was missing pieces.
Isn't it true that what you actually said is,
She just has this like very like she's it's almost like sedated on some kind of medication. I mean, the first trial, she was like very aggressive, very much in your face with the defense. So this is totally a different person here. The way she's coming across.
we got out at John's house and looked at the taillight, back right taillight, saw a crack in it, correct?
I said that I saw it and it was cracked and it was missing pieces.
You noted that he was taking notes, correct?
Correct.
Have you ever seen those notes?
No.
Would it refresh your recollection as to what you actually told him in terms of that description to take a look at his notes?
So ask it differently. That's sustained.
Sure. Do you remember exactly the words you used in describing that taillight to Trooper Proctor as you sit here today?
Again, the taillight was cracked and missing pieces.
Okay. I know that's what you're testifying to today,
Mhm.
Ms. McCabe. We're all aware of that. You've said it 4 or 5 times now. What I'm asking you is, what did you tell Trooper Proctor on January 29th? That's my question. Do you remember the exact words you used to him on the 29th?
I believe I said it was cracked and missing pieces.
Do you know that, or are you guessing?
I'm not guessing.
Okay. Do you remember that specifically?
I remember describing it as cracked and missing pieces.
Do you remember saying it had a crack, or she saw a crack in it?
I do not remember saying that, no.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at a copy of his notes?
Those are his notes.
Ms. McCabe, we can do this all day. Would it refresh your recollection to look at a copy of his notes? If it wouldn't, just tell us.
No, it wouldn't.
She doesn't want to see him. She doesn't want to be refreshed. She knows what the truth is. She just doesn't want to say it.
As you sit here today, are you telling this jury that you deny saying to Trooper Proctor, you saw a crack in it? Are you denying that statement?
I'm not denying it.
So you could have told him that.
He asked me multiple times different questions. I spoke to him at my house, and then he had called me. So maybe one time I said it had a crack in it, and another time I said it was broken and missing pieces.
So it's very possible that that's how you described it on the 29th, Ms. McCabe. It had a crack in it, right?
And missing pieces.
I'm not asking you to finish my sentence. I'm asking you, is it possible that that's what you told him that day? It had a crack in it. Yes or no?
Yes, that was
Okay,
one
thank
way.
you.
Mhm.
In the days following January 29th, in the events of January 29th, 2022, were you and your family coordinating your versions of the events that occurred on that morning?
No.
Were you and your
There's a lot of moving parts here for the jury to try to comprehend. And I think that it's important for there to be like a diagram showing who all the players are, how they're related in the beginning of the trial, maybe in your opening. And so that's not been presented here. And the judge probably wouldn't allow it either, but you hear all these names and locations. There's not really a good map of the place. The jury's gone out to the house, I guess, so that helps. But there's so many different names that that come up that I would think that it would be easier to sort of say that in the beginning and show the connections people have and show how networked Jen McCabe and the Alberts are with each other and other folks involved in this case. So
family coordinating some sort of damage control in terms of the language that your family would use to the public, to the press, to law enforcement?
No.
Did you and your family use a group chat? You and part of your family use a group chat to text each other to coordinate your communications with either the press or the public or law enforcement or family or friends?
I have multiple like group chats with family and friends.
you had a very specific group chat that included yourself, Nicole, your sister,
Mhm.
Brian Albert, and Matt McCabe, correct?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, if I may.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Thank you.
Did you show Mr. Brennan what it was?
Mr. Brennan, I did. I failed to show you.
It's okay.
Thank you. It's the one from the 29th. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Can you tell me if you recognize what's depicted or what's contained on that 2-page document?
Yes.
Don't read it at this point. Just tell me, what is that? What are we looking at?
This is a, looks like a group chat with me and my sister, Nicole.
Yeah, she does sound like she's on some kind of meds. By the way, she's talking slow and sort of mush mouth, slurred speech in a way.
Oh, no, just actually conversations with just myself and my sister, Nicole.
May I approach?
Yes. Yes, it's mine.
Oh, sure.
The case for identification.
Did you happen to catch the date of these chats? I just took the document away from you. I apologize.
It's okay. I didn't know.
May I approach?
Do you have an extra copy so she has one and you have
I'll
one,
just leave
Mr.
that one.
Jackson?
I've got an extra copy for myself. I'll leave that one.
Thank you.
Do you note the date of that series of chats?
Yes, it says 12922.
Okay. Is that a chat just between yourself and yourself and Nicole, or is that including others as well?
I think it's just myself and Nicole.
There was another series of chats, we'll get to that in a second, that does include Nicole, Brian, Matt McCabe, correct?
Yes.
On this particular set of texts, do you see the first text starting in the green box? That is a text from you to, it says Coco, correct?
Yes, that's my sister, Nicole.
Okay. And you recognize this text,
I do, yes.
and you recognize the texts following in the following bubbles?
Yes.
I would ask that this be marked moved into evidence.
Is there any objection?
If I could review it briefly.
Sure.
Anything's possible.
Why don't I see you at sidebar for a minute about this?
Yeah, I would say the all these sidebars take a lot longer to get this trial done. They already start late an hour. They have long breaks. Their lunch isn't too bad, but then they also end early. So they need to really start earlier in the day and go till 5. Look at this long sidebar break. So she's trying to keep out stuff to hurt Karen having a fair trial. Hank's trying to push the envelope day in, day out, trying to keep out things that a normal prosecutor would say, go ahead, present your case. We can win it fair and square. I'm not going to try to roadblock you every step of the way.
All right, so the objection is noted and overruled. So, Mr. Jackson, you can put that K for identification is now an exhibit.
May I approach?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before
All
I
right,
proceed,
so, jurors, before you consider any electronic communications in your deliberations, and you heard Trooper Garino read a lot of text messages the other day. I didn't interrupt him, I probably should have, but before you consider any electronic communications in your deliberations, you must first find that it is more likely true than not that the person who either authored or created or transmitted the communication was in fact the person alleged. So here we have communications between, allegedly between Ms. McCabe and her sister. Before you can consider them, you must find that it's more likely than not that they were the people who sent and received those. If you do not find it's more likely true than not that the person alleged to have created or sent them, then you may not consider the electronic communication in deciding your case. Now, when you read or hear about these text messages, you may not consider the statements for their truth, but you may consider them solely for the limited purpose of understanding the state of mind of here, Ms. McCabe, when she sent those messages. All right, so now that's what I needed to do. Mr. Jackson, your turn.
thank you, Your Honor. With the court's permission, I would ask that the January 29th text be published.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf, is there a way to, there we go.
Margaret, the witness might need that exhibit.
Your Honor, may I approach just to retrieve the exhibit?
Yes.
This is good. This is like in the Charlie Adelson murder prosecution where he was convicted of murdering FSU law professor Dan Markell. Showing text message up like this on the big screen is very good to really help the case come alive and the jurors to really see what kind of sneaky words are being used by the guilty parties here.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was just going to say, could you please enlarge that?
Any way to make that bigger? And we'll take one bubble at a time.
Ms.
Thank
McCabe, do you need lights on or are you okay?
Oh, I'm okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Ms. McCabe, does this appear to be a representative copy of what you're looking at? It's just been marked for evidence.
Yes, it does.
Starting at that top text, which is the green bubble here, can you see at the very top where it says from, there's a redaction?
Yes.
The last four digits of that phone number, do you recognize that?
Yes.
Is that your phone number?
Yes.
Do you see?
Why would you look at this? Carrie talked to cops and kept simple. This was done on January 29th, 7:54 at night. Why would you be talking about she kept it simple? Who cares what she said? Why are you worried about what each witness is saying about what happened that night? It is so bizarre. You're worried about that if you're worried about the truth coming out. That's why you'd be worried about it.
See just beneath it, it says to, and there's a line that says Coco.
Yes.
Is that your sister?
Yes, it
That's
is.
Nicole.
Yes.
And if you look down on the bottom right corner of this exhibit, do you see a time and date stamp?
Yes, I do.
What is that time and date?
It's 1:29:22 at 7:54.
Is that 7:54 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay. Can you read for the jurors what you texted to your sister at 7:54?
Sure. Carrie talked to the cops and kept it simple.
Who's Carrie?
Carrie Roberts.
And this is a text that you sent about Miss Roberts's interview with the police.
Yes, it is.
If Mr. Wilk, can we pull up the next text, please?
Right there, highly suspicious. That's the kind of thing you see with
Do you see the response?
conspiring
in the blue
on crimes.
Yes, I do.
Who's responding to whom?
I'm responding to my sister, Nicole.
Can you please tell us the time? And we know it's the same date. What
Yes.
time is that?
That would be 7:56. Or 58, sorry. I'm not sure if that's an 8 or a 6.
Thanks, Nika. Keep your money, though. Thank you. Keep your money. Give it to the defense fund for Karen. Rather, please.
I may have misheard you. The blue bubble is from whom?
It's from my sister, Nicole,
To whom?
to me.
Well, they shouldn't, but it happens all the time in this case.
Okay, I may have misheard you. I thought you said the reverse. I want to make sure we're very clear. The
I'm
blue
sorry.
bubble is from Nicole. The green bubbles are from you.
Yes, correct.
Got it. And this text says, I'm sorry, read that for me one more time.
Sure. Okay. Try and get some sleep. Talk tomorrow.
Next text, please. What's the time of this text?
7:57.
This is from you to Coco, to Nicole.
Yes.
What does that text say?
Any update?
What did you mean by any update?
I meant, had she heard anything or learned anything new?
Next text, please. Do you see a response from your sister to you?
Yes.
What does that say?
We'll get more info tomorrow. Don't want to text about it.
So she basically saying Coco's saying she's going to bed. She'll talk about it tomorrow. And then here we have Jen still pressing for information. She's like very nervous.
Next text, please. Is this a text from you to your sister, Nicole?
Yes, it is.
What does that say?
Right.
Next text, please. What is the date and time of this text?
It is 1:29 in 2022 at 8:01 p.m.
And this is in response to the text that you just read from you to your sister. And this
Yeah.
is now a text from your sister back to you, correct?
Correct.
What does this text say?
Okay, text me in the
What are you so worried about what you're going to hear? If you already told him Karen said, I hit him, then what are you waiting for? You expecting her to be arrested already? Very suspicious behavior, trying to find out and compare notes. And because Brian Albert is a detective with the Boston Police Department, she's thinking he should have the inside scoop on what's going on.
text me in AM or if you hear anything later.
Thank you. We can bring the lights up for just a moment. One of the texts, the third from the bottom text on the second page, in other words, the top text on the page, was from your sister to you. We'll get more info, TOMM, correct?
Yes.
Don't want to text about it, correct?
Yes.
TOMM means tomorrow.
Yes.
This was January 29th, 2022, correct?
Yes.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, we don't know if the jury is going to be compromised here and tainted and rigged in any way. The four-person being selected by the judge and somebody complaining about Paul. Yeah, the comment about that person will probably wind up an alternate. That's a high probability. That's why the defense counsel need to actually be there and look at all the drawings, like the numbers that have the piece of paper that had all the jurors' numbers on it when they do that raffle wheel. They need to make sure that that's not rigged as well. And I would object to the judge picking the four-person. I think that's so very much a judge putting their weight on the case to try to influence the outcome. And it definitely did that at the first trial, because she picked a former cop as the four-person, and look how that turned out.
Tomorrow would have been January 30th,
Yes.
2022. Is that right?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm holding another document. This is a multi-page document. Eight pages in total length. There's a base page on the bottom, 02148. You got a copy. Thank you. May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you please take a look at that document, flip through it, and let me know when you're finished?
This is the document we discussed at sidebar.
It is, Your Honor.
Look how long she's taking a look at these. It's like she's sedated. Is she intentionally trying to be there slow and out of it? Look at her face. Backing up, like, what am I reading here? You know, all these things, they're all conversations that you had with people. Your attorney has these documents. The prosecutor would have gone over them with you. You've testified multiple times under oath. And now you're acting like you haven't seen anything for years. This is the first time looking at it. It's all just a slow roll rope-a-dope to try to wear out the defense counsel, just to give up. And she's maybe hoping the judge would say, move along. Yes, highly suspicious. Look how long she's looking at this. She knows these documents. Like the back of her hand, she knows these. She's just playing games. I would be asking her, you're not
May I
prepared to
approach,
testify to
Yes,
your
thank you.
as a star witness for somebody you loved in the murder trial
Just a second.
Okay, you don't have a separate copy for,
for the person that killed
I
him?
do. I'm going to hand her this one and ask that this be marked. Just a
Okay.
couple of foundational questions. Ms. McCabe, do you recognize what was depicted in these documents?
Yes.
Does this appear to be a
Looking
group chat
guilty.
between and among yourself, Nicole Albert, Chris Albert, and Matt McCabe?
I don't believe Chris Albert's on that.
I'm sorry, my mistake. Brian Albert.
Yeah, Brian,
Okay.
sorry.
So the four of you?
Yes.
Okay. And does this appear to be a group chat that was engaged between and among y'all on February 1st, starting, I'm going to try to bookend it, starting
Okay.
at about noon, ending at about 5 or 5:30 that evening?
I didn't look, but I'll take your word for it.
If you could just look at the first one or two.
Oh, yeah.
If you want
February
the top one,
1st,
the
yeah.
top one has nothing to do with this.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the last one, same date, around 5:30.
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'd ask this be marked
Say, for identification or in evidence?
into evidence.
Same objection, Mr. Brown?
Please.
So, yes, that can come in.
number 48?
Oh, can I?
True. She doesn't want the
And
evidence.
jurors,
coming
the
in.
same instruction regarding the electronic communications and the same instruction regarding this is not to be used for the truth of what's in there, but simply as opposed to being a fake statement.
With the court's permission to publish, please?
Yes.
If we could start at the second text down. Ms. Will, can you make that a little bigger? I apologize. Thank you. Do you recognize what's depicted both on the screen and in your hand? Does
Yes.
it appear to be the same thing?
Yes.
Okay. Taking a look at that first text, who is that from and who is it to?
Okay. All right. It's from Brian Albert, and it's to myself, my sister Nicole, and Matt McCabe, my
And-
husband.
And if you can orient us, please, and I won't do this with every single text, but orient us for the first text. What date and time is this text?
This is February 1st at 12:50.
So this is about 3 days after the event in question.
Yes.
12:50 noon,
Noon. Yeah.
just before 1 p.m.
Yes.
What does that text say?
Julie said Channel 4 is in D&E.
And that's from whom?
Brian.
So Brian Albert explain what that text means.
So Brian Albert is telling us that Julie told him Channel 4 is in D&E.
Who's Julie?
I'm sorry, Julie Albert.
Thank you. Let's go to the next text.
That's a pizza sub shop of Brian Albert's brother,
Is this in response to the text that you just read?
Yes.
owned by Chris Albert. This is Matt McCabe responding.
The prior text mentioned Channel 4 and D&E. What is
Mhm.
D&E?
D&E is a sub shop that is owned by Chris Albert.
Is that in Canton?
Oh, sorry. Yes, it's in Canton.
On the main street of Canton?
Yes.
Directly next door to what?
Waterfall.
Across the street from
Oh,
Waterfall.
sorry. CF McCarthy's. Yeah.
Thank you. Across the street from Waterfall, directly adjoining, they have an adjoining wall to CF McCarthy's, correct?
Yes.
And D, is it D and E or D in E?
D and E.
D and E. Okay,
Yeah.
that's just the name of the pizza sub shop.
Yeah.
Thank you for that context. Ms. McCabe, can you read what this text says, who it's from and who it's to?
This is from Matt McCabe to myself, my sister Nicole, and Brian.
Can you read it for us, please?
Sure. Eating, I assume. Ask Chris to ask some questions. Tell them the guy never went into the house.
That is damning.
What
Wow, that
does
is
tell
damning.
them the guy never went into the house mean to you? How did you?
This is huge. Tell them the guy never went in the house. Why would you say that? The guy again, talking about John O'Keefe. Notice she referred to him as a man and a guy when she's calling 911, using those terms multiple times. And now you got her husband, Matt, also calling him a guy. And why would he say, tell him the guy never went in the house if he indeed never went in the house? You wouldn't have to mention that at all. And look at this. Ask Chris to ask some questions. They're trying to do research to find out what maybe the news media are finding out from law enforcement. So look at how they're so guarded and cautious and inquisitive on, hey, what is law enforcement finding out? And if they ask you anything, just make sure you go with that storyline. The guy never went in the house. Just like it was reported in the news. They had Karen on camera, on some kind of ring camera, hitting John with her vehicle, which was all a falsehood.
You take that.
I took that as John never came in the house.
Who's the guy?
John.
John O'Keefe.
Yes.
And the beginning of that sentence is tell them that the guy never came in the house, correct?
Yes.
And the sentence before that is ask Chris to ask some questions, correct?
Yes.
So this is Matt McCabe directing that Chris ask questions of Channel 4, correct?
I wouldn't say directing.
Whatever word you want to
Lawyer Nurse, do you think it's possible Jen McCabe took the piece of broken taillight? Karen said she saw John O'Keefe's driveway, and that is the missing ring video. Maybe that's why they wanted to take it off. I mean, anything's possible in this case. I just don't trust law enforcement. And if they got a hold of the ring camera and it would do something like that, I could totally believe that. So you could be onto something. Thank you.
use. He was
No, I'm saying that Matt,
suggesting.
I think we're all looking to find out what happened. So Matt was like, ask some questions. What do they know?
And also indicating that Chris should tell them the guy never came in the house, correct?
John never came in the house, correct?
Okay. Next text, please.
Why's that got to be a talking point? That's huge for the defense.
Can you orient us? Who is this text from and who is it to?
Okay. This text is from Brian to myself, to Nicole, and to Matt.
Brian who?
Sorry, Brian Albert.
And this is in response to the text above that you just read, correct?
Yes.
Where Matt McCabe said, tell Chris to find out, get an update or something, and tell them that the guy never came in the house. This is
Yes.
in response to that text.
Yes.
And what does Brian Albert respond?
Exactly.
One word, correct?
Yes.
Next text, please. This is a green box, so I presume this is you.
Yes, it is.
And this is to whom?
To Nicole, to Brian, to Matt.
And what does your text read?
It means, oh my God.
It's ONG, but it
Yeah.
meant to be OMG, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I do a lot of errors.
Which stands for oh my God.
Yes.
Next text, please. Who is this from and who is it to?
So this is from my sister Nicole to myself, to Brian, and to Matt.
And what does that text read?
It says, I assume it's just to eat, but Brian, if she is there, ask her what the deal is.
Next text, please. Before I ask you about this text, the last text, that was from whom? One more time.
My sister Nicole.
It was from your sister Nicole,
Yes.
and she mentions a she, pronoun she.
Yes.
Is that referring to Julie?
I hope they're making the connections. They should be making connections, but we'll never know for sure. But I think as this plays out, people can tell if people are lying on as witnesses on a jury overall. I think my experience is jurors do get it. I just think we had an aberration in the last jury because you had a cop there as a foreperson and he basically just tricked a lot of people, is my theory.
Albert?
To be honest, I don't know who she's referring to.
Well, remember the first text started, or did the first text start with someone reporting that Julie said that Channel 4 was in D&E?
Yes, it did.
So would that prior text mean get Julie Albert to get some updates on what's going on? Let's go back to that last text one more time.
Yeah,
You see where it reads, if she's there?
Really, yeah, it is sort of insulting. Even just following this case, it's sort of like, how do you even say this with a straight face if you're a prosecutor that Karen Reed is guilty? It's that bad of a case. It does have to insult your intelligence, and then you have to come up with a whole new theory on what happened in your timeline.
Does that mean if Julie is at D&E, hence she just reported that Channel 4 is there?
I'm truly not sure if who she's referring to as the she.
Okay, fair enough. Let's go to the next text, please. Mr. Wilk, I think you missed one. The one above it. Who's this text from and who's it to?
This text is from myself, and it is to my sister Nicole, to Brian, and to Matt.
And what does this read?
This says to ask if we heard if she is in a mental hospital.
Next text, please. Who is this from and who's it to?
I think they're showing these up on the screen still. Whoever the camera person is here, they didn't move the camera to show it on the big screen.
This is from me to my sister Nicole, to Brian, and to Matt.
What's the time on this text?
2:55.
And what does it read?
Carrie is here going over timeline.
Who's the Carrie referring to?
Carrie Roberts.
What is here?
I would assume here would mean my house.
Next text, please. Who's this from and who's it to?
This is from Brian to me, to Nicole, to Matt.
And what does this text read?
I did hear that.
Next text, please. Who's this text from and who's it to?
That's all John's doing, my brother.
This text is from me to my sister Nicole, to Brian, to Matt.
What does it read?
And we handed the phone to Carrie,
Who's Carrie?
Carrie Roberts.
What phone are you referring to?
Mine.
Who was on the other end of that phone?
On February 1st, I believe it could have been Michael Proctor.
Next text, please. Who is this from and who's it to?
This is from me to Nicole, to Brian, to Matt.
What does it read?
She is telling him everything.
Everything is in all caps with an exclamation point, correct?
Yes, it is.
What's the timestamp on this, Ms. McCabe?
2:55.
Who's the him that you're referring to in this text?
I believe it was Michael Proctor.
Next text, please. Who is this from and who is it to?
This is from me to Nicole, to Brian, to Matt.
What's the timestamp on this text?
2:55.
Same minute that you sent the last text?
Yes.
She's telling him everything?
Yes.
And then you follow up with what?
All the stuff.
Next text, please. Who is this responsive text from?
This is from Matt to myself, Nicole, and Brian.
And what's the timestamp on this?
4:35.
What does this read?
Yep. If she pleads out, it will end. If she fights it, it will be an episode.
Who's she?
I'm assuming that would be Miss Reed.
Next text, please. Who's this from and who's it to?
This is from Nicole to me, to Matt, and to Brian.
And what does this read?
She liked the text above.
The previous text,
Yes.
meaning like a thumbs up or a like.
Yeah, it just says liked. So
The one that reads, yeah, if she pleads, it will end.
Mhm.
If she fights, it will be an episode.
yes.
Next text, please.
I might do that. Thanks.
Who's this from and who's it to?
This is from Matt. Oh, sorry. To me, to Nicole, and to Brian.
And what does this read?
Brian, sitting separate.
Is that a period or a comma? I honestly can't see. Is that a period or a comma between Brian and sitting? Or can you tell?
I can't tell if it is or it's just like the way it printed out. I'm not sure.
Next text, please. Who's this from and who's it to?
Brian, to me, Nicole, and Matt.
What's the timestamp on this?
That is 4:55.
And what does that text read?
Okay.
And the next text. This is another green bubble. Who's this from and who's it to?
This is me, Matt. Me, Nicole, Matt, and Brian.
And what did you say? What did you write in this text?
I wrote you listening.
And what's the timestamp on this?
That is 5:15.
I'm sorry, it would be what time?
Oh, I'm sorry, 5:15.
And in fact, at 5:15, Ms. Roberts was in your house being personally interviewed by Massachusetts State Police, correct?
They were there. I'm not sure if this is the exact time, but yes, they did come over.
Just to be clear and to orient us, there was a phone conversation that you were privy to between Carrie Roberts and Michael Proctor telephonically, correct?
She was
Earlier in the day.
yeah. Earlier in the day, he had called me, and then Carrie had asked to speak with him.
And that's the handed for the phone.
Yes.
And later, a couple of hours later, 5-ish or so, she was still at your house. Michael Proctor came over and interviewed her at your home.
No,
I'm sorry, not Michael,
sorry.
Massachusetts State Police.
Came over and spoke to myself, her, and Matt.
And you wrote you listening to the group, correct?
Yes.
Who was that specifically directed to?
I honestly don't know.
Was there anybody else in the house during her interview other than you and the troopers?
My husband, Matt, my daughter, her friend, my other daughter.
So of the people on this text chain, the only person that would have been in the house that could have conceivably, quote unquote, listened would be Matt. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Next text, please.
And know everything what Karen did.
Who's this from and who's it to?
It's from me to Matt, Nicole, and Brian.
And what does it read?
Cops here again.
You were reporting to the others on this text stream that the police had arrived at your house. They were in your house with you and Carrie that you just described, correct?
Yes, I was just telling them that they were here again.
Next text, please.
That's what I think.
Who is this from and who's it to?
This is from my sister, Nicole, to myself, Brian, and Matt. And Nicole says, call us after.
And what time was this?
This was 5:23.
Did you take this to mean that she wanted you to call the group after Carrie Roberts' interview and update them about that interview?
I took it as that she just wanted, to call and see what the cops said and if there was any update, any information.
Next text, please. Who's this from and who's it to?
This is from Matt, and it's to myself, Nicole, and Brian.
What time is this?
This is at 5:31.
And at 5:31, what does Mr. McCabe write to the group?
This girl could write a book nonstop.
Was that in reference to Carrie Roberts having her interview with the Massachusetts State Police?
Yes, it was.
And this girl is Carrie, correct?
Yes.
Why would they care how much she's talking to the police? Why are they concerned that Carrie's running her mouth and giving too much information? It's just very much an indicator that they got something under wraps.
Next text, please. Who's this from and who's it to?
This is from me to Nicole, Brian, and Matt.
What time is this text?
5:32.
And what do you write to the group?
I love it.
And this is in direct response to Matt McCabe's, your husband's text about Carrie Roberts could write a book, correct?
Yes.
Suggesting that both you and Mr. McCabe were listening to her interview, correct?
We could hear different parts of it, correct?
Next text, please.
I haven't seen that. If she's eating something.
And who's this from and who's it to?
This is from me to Nicole, to Brian, to Matt.
And what did you write?
I wrote, she is telling them everything.
Similar to the text that we earlier saw that was in all caps when you indicated she's telling them everything, correct?
Yes.
On the phone. That was in reference to what she was saying on the phone.
Yes.
This is in reference to the live interview, correct?
Yes.
Also indicating that you were listening to and were privy to the content of her conversation with the police.
I could hear bits and pieces of it, yes.
Enough to say that she's telling them everything.
Yeah. Don't send any money to me. Please send it to Karen Reed Defense Team.
When I use the word everything, I meant it not only was she telling them what had happened, but she was also telling them opinions and different things.
Okay, so you could hear it that much.
I could hear her saying some opinions.
Okay. Next text, please. Who's this from and who's it to?
This is from my sister Nicole to myself, to Matt, to Brian.
And this is in response to she is telling them everything, correct?
Yes.
And the text reads what?
Good.
Next text, please. Who's this from and who's it to?
This is from Matt to myself, to Nicole, and to Brian.
And what does it read?
He says, going to miss the basketball game at this rate.
You mean Matt says.
Oh, sorry. Matt says, going to miss the basketball game at this rate.
Indicating that he was still in the house and still privy to the conversation between Carrie Roberts and the Massachusetts State Police.
He was waiting for them to talk, but Carrie kept as he said, she could write a book. So he felt he was going to miss the game because she just kept talking.
Next text, please. That may be the end of it.
Yeah, it is.
Is that the last text on the page?
Yes, it is.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Do you want both of them? Okay. There you go.
Ms. McCabe,
Yes.
these text messages were on a private chat, both the one between you and your sister, as well as the group chat, correct? Those are private chats, not open to the public.
Correct.
You never intended, obviously, for any of those texts to become public, correct?
I handed my phone over, so I knew all my texts would be seen.
When you were writing the text, when the group was chatting back and forth or texting back and forth, those were intended to be private texts between and among just the people on the text string, correct?
I just was texting my family. I wasn't thinking anymore of who was going to see it.
You certainly did not expect when you were writing those texts that the defense, Ms. Karen Reed's representatives would ever get a hold of those texts. That was not in your mind, correct?
Would never have been in my mind, no.
That is a textbook example, what we've just seen, of witnesses colluding with one another about a subject matter that's under investigation, correct?
I move for an instruction.
All right, jurors, disregard that comment completely. Disregard that question.
Why? That's perfectly relevant. That's what cross-examination is about. Under the Constitution, you have a right to get in the people's face of somebody that's trying to accuse your client. The lawyer's there on behalf of Karen Reed, and the lawyer needs to expose these people and their lies and their cover-ups and their agendas. And that's what the defense is supposed to do. But the prosecutor knows this is damaging kind of cross-examination. So he's trying to block it. And what does the judge do? She allows that to happen. So it's a sham trial. There's no credibility here. It's not legitimate. There's no rule of law here. It's all, what can we do to persecute, hide the truth, and get Karen Reed convicted?
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes.
Good. You need to approach, you need to blast away constitutional law that you're citing to the judge and talk about how you're being denied an unfair trial. I'd call the judge out on her bias and her conflict of interest every time I have a sidebar. And if she says I can't have a sidebar, then I said, well, I can't proceed, Your Honor, because I need to make a statement on the record. You want me to say it in front of the jury? And that's what I would do. I would not let a judge say you cannot make something on the record. So, and then also bring up you're ineffective. That's something that's very much something that a lot of lawyers don't do. They're thinking a lawyer's never going to say they're ineffective if a judge shuts them down. And so they really get rattled by that. So I've not had to do that, but I've been ready to do that if a judge does not let me do something that I think is constitutionally required to represent my client.
May I, Your Honor? Yes. Thank you. In the text that we just saw, you were colluding with other witnesses, percipient witnesses in this case through those text messages, were you not?
Good. So right here, this proves if AJ wouldn't have gone up there and asked for a sidebar and strenuously objected, hopefully he's got case law ready to show the judge and Hank Brennan that this is constitutionally required kind of questioning. So, and he won this one. He's not going to win every one. He may not win hardly any of them, but you need to call the judge out when she's making these terrible rulings. So that's something that I've been advocating before the second trial, and the defense team is doing exactly that. So that's great to see that.
I was not.
You were organizing your statements to the police based on what you overheard and what you heard during Kerry Roberts'
Will do.
interview with the Massachusetts State Police, weren't you?
No, I was not.
You were reporting back to other percipient witnesses what you heard and saw during other witnesses' statements to the police, to wit, Kerry Roberts, correct?
I was telling them Carrie was speaking with the police.
And you told them she's telling them, quote, everything, correct?
Yes, I told them some of the opinions that she stated.
And when Mr. McCabe said she could write a book, she's going on, in other words, she's going on and on, your statement was, I love it, correct?
Yes,
And you reported that back to other witnesses who were not privy to Ms. Roberts's statements to the police, correct?
to my sister and to my brother-in-law, yes.
And then your sister asked for updates when Kerry Roberts was done, correct?
I don't know if it was in regard to updates when she was done or updates like, did they tell us anything? Is there anything new? We were still all trying to figure out what had happened.
The four of you were discussing the facts surrounding this case, not only with each other, but discussing interviews, formal police interviews that you heard or overheard with another witness, weren't you?
I told them some of the things that Kerry Roberts said, yes.
I like the way that Jackson is really being aggressive in his tone. He's very clear. He's not talking too fast. He's raising his voice, and he's showing his frustration, but he's also showing I'm going to control this witness. You're not going to dodge and weave and be evasive. He's doing the best he can, but she is so evasive. And look at her face right now. She is mad, and she looks guilty. She looks like the defendant of this case, not Karen Reed. If you look at Karen Reed's face compared to her, and you just held him up to somebody off the street, says, "Hey, one of these persons is accused of murder and facing trial. Which one do you think it is?" Everybody would be picking her. So why is she looking so guilty?
You were happy about what she said after you had created this timeline with her, correct?
The timeline had nothing to do with it.
But it was certainly chronologically. Her interview with the police was after this timeline had already been created between you and Carrie Roberts.
Yes, we both put down what had happened so we would remember.
And then once
It's another one of those denials of calling her sister. So
she was interviewed, you were responding to the rest of the group. She's telling them everything, meaning everything we just crafted in this timeline.
No, I meant she was telling them everything. She was telling her personal opinions about Miss Reed.
I want to change gears for a second, Ms. McCabe, and ask you about that visit that you took to Michael Lank's house. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I just don't want to.
if John was some kind of informant with the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office, and then he winds up dead, we wouldn't know that.
Keep these at the podium. Thank you, Your Honor.
That could be it, yes. If not from Chris Albert.
Have you and Ms. Roberts discussed that visit to Michael Lank's house before your testimony, before you testified to it for the first time in May of 2024, about a year ago? Did y'all discuss that at all?
I don't recall.
You testified under oath in that proceeding that you went, and I want to be very clear about this, that you went from One Meadows, the O'Keefe residence, John O'Keefe's residence, directly to Michael Lank's residence, which is in another neighborhood in the same town, correct?
Yes, we went. Correct.
And you indicated that you were there to drop off one of Carrie's daughters. Is that right?
Yes.
That's how you testified in May of 2024, about a year ago.
Yes.
Yeah, just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure she does. I'm sure she's looked it over him.
You spoke to
more
Lieutenant
time?
Tully about this very same visit on May 10th, 2024, before your actual testimony in that other proceeding a year ago, correct?
Yes.
All right. And what y'all talked about was your visit and your travels over to Sergeant Lank's, by the way, Sergeant Michael Lank of Canton PD, correct? The
Yes.
same Michael Lank that we've talked about.
Yes.
You talked to Lieutenant Tully about that trip over to Michael Lank's house, correct?
Yes.
You indicated that in that interview with Lieutenant Tully that you went over to the Lank residence with Carrie Roberts to pick up her daughter at the residence, correct? Not to drop her off, but to pick her up.
She was with us at Meadows, so we dropped her off.
Right. I know that's what your testimony was a couple days ago.
Mhm.
I'm asking, when you talked to Lieutenant Tully on May 10th, 2024, before your testimony last year, did you tell Lieutenant Tully we were actually there to pick up her daughter? That's why we went to Michael Lank's house. That's why you went to Michael Lank's house.
I went to Michael Lank's to drop her daughter off.
What did you tell Lieutenant Tully?
That I went to drop her off.
So a lot of these names being passed around, that's the thing. As attorneys, you're working a case, the second trial, all these names are really fluid off the top of your head. But if you don't have some kind of like org chart and have faces on who is who and that kind of thing. Who works for the police department that was involved in this case? Who works for the Massachusetts State Police that worked for this case? Had their pictures up, and then who's the family of the Alberts, and where do they live, and sort of so diagrams and maps showing all that kind of stuff. If you have some kind of thing that lays the scene like there and sort of walks the dog, as the saying goes, and also shows where Chloe, the dog, lives there with the Alberts. But anyway, that would sort of help set the scene. So some of this is sort of fast moving with names and stuff like that. With Tully, it's like I'm not sure the jury's going to really pick up on this. But overall, he's moving quick along, and she knows she's just trying to, like, she's panicked, and she's like a deer with headlights shining down bright at her. She doesn't know what to do other than constantly deflect, not answer a straight question, and claim amnesia.
So you didn't say pick her up to him.
I don't believe so,
So
no.
if he said that, that would be another example of an incorrect report.
Sustained.
Do you remember exactly what it was that you told him?
That's totally legitimate line of questioning. So just absolute disgrace, this court. It's not a court of law and jurisprudence.
During that interview?
I know that Lexi was with us at Meadows Ave, and we dropped her off at Mike Lank. So if he mixed up pick up and drop off, that could have happened. But we had Lexi with us, and we dropped her off there.
Okay, so you believe that may have been his mix-up, not yours.
Sustained.
Is that? I'm sorry. Do you remember exactly what it was that you told Lieutenant Tully during that interview?
I know I said that we dropped her off.
It was 11 days later that you actually testified, correct?
11 days later from
After the interview, about 10, 11 days after the interview with Lieutenant Tully, that you actually testified in court about in a proceeding about this issue.
Ben. I don't know the exact dates of when I testified.
If you testified, say, May 21st,
Is that siren there for law enforcement that support Karen Reed? Hopefully that is the case, because they don't do it when the prosecution's doing the direct. As far as this jury tampering thing, I think they're not going to be able to get all 12 jurors and bribe them or pay them off or influence them through external means. What'll happen is if they have one person that has a lot of pull and a lot of influence, like the foreman did beforehand, and confuse all these jurors, that's the only way you can sort of rig it. But what that actually does is just get them usually a mistrial instead of a complete flipping, and go from a not guilty to a guilty across the board. So I'm not as concerned about that, but it is something that there could be efforts to be made underway to do that.
versus May 10th, it's about 11 days.
Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
When you testified in that other proceeding, you did testify that you had dropped off Carrie Roberts' daughter, not picked her daughter up. Is that right?
I know I dropped her off, yes.
Did you also talk to Carrie Roberts about her testimony and what she was going to say about dropping off or picking up her daughter?
No.
Okay. You never talked to her about it before you testified or before she testified last year?
We both know what happened, so I
I'm
don't.
just asking if you had a discussion. That's all I'm asking.
I have no idea if we discussed that.
So you might have.
I have no idea.
And in the last year, let's clock it around all the way to now,
Mhm.
you've probably discussed it additionally with her, correct?
Probably not that detailed, no.
Now, you also indicated, by the way, the reason that this subject matter came up with Lieutenant Tully is you were confronted with certain location data records indicating that you were at Michael Lank's house for a period of time, correct?
Sustained, ask it differently.
Were you provided any records and asked about records that showed that you were at Michael Lank's house on January 30th, 2022?
I was asked if I had gone to Michael Lank's house, and I had, to be honest, I had completely forgotten because those days were just a complete blur. But then I remembered that after we left Meadows Ave, we did drop her daughter off at Michael Lank's.
Lon, you're asking why did the prosecution abandon the witness intimidation stuff, generally exploited being victimized last time. She seems lost about that outrage. Well, I think the defense is not wanting to open the door. The trial one, the defense, they're saying open the door, and that's how she was able to rant about how she's being harassed and all that kind of stuff by different people in the public. And I would still bring up, though, you have hired a very expensive criminal defense lawyer. He's here in the courtroom. And how much have you spent on attorney's fees to date? When did you first hire him? I'd go into all those kind of details. And if she tries to say because she's been harassed and victimized by all this kind of stuff in the public, I'll just keep going after her on that line of questioning, because a lawyer sitting in his office isn't going to do anything to protect you if somebody's harassing you out in public. So you need to have, if somebody's harassing you, then you have a restraining order. And that's the way you go about doing it. Hiring a lawyer and paying $400 or $500 an hour for a lawyer to protect you doesn't make any sense at all. So I would just cross-examine them and impeach them on that if I was defense.
All right. Do you recall ever seeing a document, seeing something that indicated that you were actually a piece of paper, a document, a record, anything indicating that you were seen at Michael Lank's house through GPS location data forms?
Did I ever see a record of that?
Correct. The lieutenant showed.
No, he didn't show me a record.
He just asked you about
He
it.
just asked me.
Did he tell you during that course of that interview that he had been provided with GPS data records indicating that you went to Michael Lank's house?
I don't remember the specifics of what he asked, but I know that he did ask me if I had been there.
Did he tell you that he had received those GPS data records from the defense?
Sustained.
Did he tell you anything about receiving any documents from the defense that prompted the question where you were on January 3rd?
I don't recall.
Before that interview on May 10th with Lieutenant Tully,
Mhm.
this is preceding your testimony last year.
Okay.
Had you ever reported that you went to Michael Lank's house, Sergeant Lank's house, on January 30th to anybody?
No, to be honest, I completely forgot about it.
You indicated that during that visit, you sat outside in a car, in Carrie's car, correct?
Yes.
Basically for the entire visit. Is that right?
Yes.
You indicated that you did not go in the house except to use the restroom possibly, correct?
I have a faint memory that I ran in to use the bathroom.
You indicated that you did not see Sergeant Lank at his home, correct?
I don't believe I did, no.
What time of night was this?
Yeah, that's a weird instruction. I don't get it. Not to take what it says as the truth. I think unless you believe that it was actually sent by these people. But she validated these were text messages that were accurate. So these are not messages she's saying she never saw or was part of the group messaging of them.
I don't know. We had been at Meadows for a while, and then we left, dropped Lexi off, and then I went home. I don't know a time, maybe afternoon. I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
Your Honor, I have a 10-page document that I'd like to have marked as identification with the court's permission.
Sure. Show Mr. Brennan on your way up.
Take your time. attorney's just going to review that document. I have no problem with that.
Thank you.
Good? Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you recognize the document there?
So has it been marked yet?
I'm sorry, I asked that it be marked for identification at this point, just only for identification. Sorry.
So Madam Court Reporter will mark it and give it back. Okay.
Thank you.
Should be valid for identification.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Once you get the document back, I'll ask you a couple of quick questions about it.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Gracie.
You have the document in front of you?
Yes.
Let's take a look at the first page of that document just to orient yourself. Do you see that that appears to be a map, generally?
All right. So I'm just going to ask you to take a look at the document and don't describe it.
Sure. Take a look at the first page and tell me if you recognize anything on that page.
I do, yes.
What do you recognize generally about that document?
Yeah.
I'll see counsel at sidebar. May I have that, please, Ms. McCabe? Sure.
And I'm going to try to fast forward here. Yeah, 10-page documents.
Thank you.
Judge's going to try to
Thank you.
keep them out.
Taking a look at that first page, do you recognize a location that's pinpointed on that page?
I do.
Okay, without telling me the address, what do you recognize that as being?
My house.
Okay, and do you see in the call-out box in the middle of the page,
Yes.
do you see a date and time?
Yes.
What is the date and time?
It is January 30th at 12:13.
Take a look at page 2 on what's been marked for identification.
Okay.
Do you see a location pinpointed on that page?
I do, yes.
What do you recognize that location as being?
John O'Keefe's home.
Is that what we've talked about on Meadows?
Yes, Meadows.
Do you see a time and date for that location?
Yes, 1/30/2022 at 12:19.
At 12:19 p.m.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. If you could turn to page, pardon me, 4, skip over page 3 and just go straight to page 4.
Mhm.
Do you recognize something that's been pinpointed on that map as well?
Yes.
What is that? Again, don't give me the full address. What is that location that's pinpointed?
That is my house.
Okay, and do you see a date and time for that location?
Yes, that's 1:30 at 5:21.
When you say 1:30, January 30th.
Sorry, January 30th, 2022 at 5:21.
Okay. Looking at page 5, do you see a location
Yes.
pinpointed on that map as well?
Yes, I do.
And what's the date and time of that location?
That is also 1:30.
I don't know why he's going through all these pages. Jury doesn't know what's going on here. There's sort of law, so it's I would do them one at a time and then address that document.
2022, and that is at 5:28.
Got it. Taking a look at page 6, do you see a location pinpointed on that map?
Yes,
What is that again? What is that location?
that is 1/30/2022.
The location, the address?
Oh, I'm sorry. That is Fairview.
Appear to be 34 Fairview.
Yes,
And what's the date and time?
5:36.
Taking a look at page 7, do you see anything located on that, a pinpoint location on that page?
Yes,
What's the date? I'm sorry, what is that location?
that's Fairview again.
And what's the date and time?
That is 1/30/22 at 5:40.
So just to be clear, the page before was 536 and this page is 540.
Yes.
Okay.
Look at one of my live streams from yesterday in the afternoon. You'll see some information on that, Sandy.
Look at page 8. Do you see what's pinpointed on that page?
Yes.
What is that location without giving me the address?
I believe that's Mike Lank's
What's
home.
the date and time?
1/30/2022.
January 30th, 2022. And
Yes.
the time, please?
5:43.
You're familiar with Canton, obviously,
Yes.
much more than we are. Is
Yes.
driving time from 34 Fairview to Michael Lank's house consistent with about 3 or 4 minutes?
It could be with they have multiple stop signs
Okay,
and due to the weather.
right. Taking a look at page 9,
Yes.
do you see another pinpointed address?
Yes. I believe it's the same one
Okay, the same address on,
as
Oakdale?
Mike Lank.
okay. And what's the time, what's the date of that?
1/30/2022, and that is 6:28.
And 6:28 is about 45 minutes after 5:43, give or take, correct?
Yeah.
Finally, the last page, page 10, do you see yet another pinpointed address?
I do. Yes.
Is that your address?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And what's the date and time of that pinpoint?
That is 1/30/22 as well, and that is at 6:34.
And would it be safe to say that your address from Mike Lank's address, maybe 6 or 7 minute drive?
Yeah, depending. Mhm.
All right, sorry to tie this all in then, Jackson.
We were talking about what happened when you were at Mike Lank's that evening. By the way, does any of that refresh your recollection about the time that you went to Mike Lank's house?
Yes, I knew it was after Meadows and later in the day. Yes.
So closer to 5:45, 6:30, correct?
Yes.
This is in January in Boston, is that right? The greater Boston area.
Yes.
Gets dark really early.
Yes.
It was a blizzard.
The night before. Yes.
Safe to say that it was dark out.
Yeah, I
Safe to
assume.
say it was cold out.
Yes.
The blizzard was still brewing, correct?
I think it had stopped snowing by then.
Still freezing cold.
Believe so.
And your testimony is that you sat outside in a car with Carrie Roberts and Michael Lank's wife for 45 minutes.
Yes.
You actually, and I'm assuming the car was running.
Yes.
He had to be on full blast.
Yes.
You're dressed in winter gear
Yes.
because it's freezing out, correct?
Correct.
You actually got out of the car and went into the house with the restroom at one point.
I have a faint memory. I think I did. Yes.
And the three of you didn't just decide, let's just go in the house.
No, we didn't.
You actually came out of the restroom, came out of the nice warm house, and fought the cold and got back in the car, according to you, correct?
Yes, I went back in the car because Carrie was going to bring me home.
I'll look for that at the end.
You stated on direct examination that, and you stated again today, that you stopped by Michael Lank's house, Sergeant Lank's house, directly from the O'Keefe residence as sort of a, my word, not yours, sort of a pit stop to drop off Carrie Roberts' daughter, correct?
Correct.
In point of fact, you actually drove from your personal residence to Michael Lank's house as a destination, didn't you?
I don't remember that.
Hopefully.
This is what this piece of paper says. I remember just leaving Meadows and dropping off Lexi.
In point of fact, it wasn't an errand. It wasn't to drop anybody off. It was a destination that you went to from your house to Sergeant Lank's house on January 30th, 2022, wasn't it?
No, we went to drop off Lexi.
Was Lexi at your house?
She was with us at Meadows, and then we went to drop her off.
Right. She was never with you at your house, was she?
I don't remember going to my house.
So if she wasn't with you at your house, there would be no reason to drop the child off from your house to Michael Lank's house.
Lexi was in the car with us and we dropped her off at Michael Lank's. That's why we went to Officer Lank's house. Yes.
And in point of fact, you actually went from your house and did make a pit stop to 34th Fairview before you went to Michael Lank's house. didn't you?
We drove by and stopped. Yes. Slowly stopped. Yes.
You went in the house and spoke with someone.
No, I never went in the house.
Why did you go by and just stop?
I think Carrie and I just went by to like take a look at it. We were still trying to figure everything out.
Stay there for 4 to 6 minutes.
Yes, Karen Reed's appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court has been denied, which I expected to do that. I didn't think they had enough case law that could support what they're asking for.
I have to look at the report, but yeah, we were sitting in the car, kind of just like, oh my God, looking.
Didn't go in the house.
We didn't go in the house. No,
Nobody came outside to talk to you.
no,
You didn't speak to Nicole.
I don't believe so.
Possible.
Like I said, Carrie and I just kind of drove by and were looking at the area.
And that's before you went to Michael Lank's house, correct?
That was on the way to Michael Lank's.
So in point of fact, you didn't go directly from One Meadows to Michael Lank's house.
I thought I had. I truly thought I had.
But now your memory is refreshed.
My memory is not. This isn't refreshing my memory. I do not remember going by my house before Michael Lank's.
Do you remember testifying a year ago that, well, let me ask it this way. Do you remember denying a year ago that you ever even stopped by 34 Fairview?
I don't remember that now.
Would it refresh your recollection to take a look at your prior testimony?
Sure.
All this time she says, sure.
Take a look at that page, the top highlighted.
Mhm.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. On May 21st of last year, you were asked about this very thing in a prior proceeding, correct?
Correct.
At that time, you denied altogether ever going by 34 Fairview, correct?
No, I believe the paper says I never stopped by, but we drove by.
And now you're saying that you did stop.
Stopping by and driving by meant something different to me. Stopping by, I look at as like, then you pop in the house. Driving by is you just drive by. So we just drove by slowly and kind of looked at the scene.
And Ms. McCabe, I think you just said that you may have even spoken with Nicole.
I didn't speak with Nicole, no. We were in the car, Carrie and I and Lexi.
You were denying that you ever spoke with Nicole or any other member.
Okay, I'll
of the
try to
Albert
do
family
that.
Or anybody at 34 Fairview as you sit here today.
As I sit here today, I'm telling you that we slowly drove by.
So again, last question on this point. You did not, you now admit, drive from One Meadows over to Michael Lank's house directly to drop off Carrie's daughter.
My memory is we did drive from One Meadows. I know what this piece of paper says. I'm telling you that just my memory is we left Meadows and went down Fairview and then went to Michael Lank's. But this paper is saying we stopped at my house first. I don't remember that. But
And all of
again,
you-
I was in shock.
Sorry.
So a
All of
lot
you-
of things from that day are foggy. Certain things, certain details I may have forgotten.
And all of your testimony over the last several days is based on that memory that you just described to these jurors, correct?
There are certain things I'll never forget, correct?
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. You may, depending upon your answer, depending upon what you just answered, you may or may not remember.
Yeah, he could have gone into that with detail and expose it for another exaggeration and made up story, but there's still enough there. I mean, she's absolutely toast as a witness. You can't believe a word this witness says. That's what I think the jury's picking up on.
Let's see.
Okay.
Isn't it true that at 12:13 p.m. you left 12 Country Lane on January 30th, 2022?
Yes, according to this, yes.
Isn't it true that at 12:19 you arrived at One Meadows, the O'Keefe residence?
According to this, yes.
Are you asking her regarding?
I'm asking her memory, not according to the document.
Oh, my
Your
memory.
Your
I don't
memory.
remember exact times.
Thank you. Isn't it true, Ms. McCabe, that at 5:12 p.m. you left One Meadows, which is the O'Keefe residence, 5:12 in the evening?
That I don't remember the times that I left.
Isn't it true that at 5:21 you arrived back at your address on Country Lane?
I do not remember that.
Isn't it true that at 5:28, 7 minutes later, you actually left your address on Country Lane?
Again,
I think you could just Google that and find it that way, or look it up on Facebook for the donation page for Karen's defense.
I don't remember going by my house.
Isn't it true that at 5:36 you arrived at 34 Fairview and stayed for at least 4 minutes?
I know we drove by.
Isn't it true that at 5:40, but they're just thereafter, you left 34 Fairview?
I know we left and went to Mike Lank's.
And isn't it true at 5:43 you arrived on that Oakdale Road address at Sergeant Lank's house?
Not sure of the exact time, but yes, we did go to Sergeant Lank's house.
And isn't it true that at 6:28, almost 45 minutes later, actually a little better than 45 minutes later, you left that address at Michael Lank's house and drove back to your house directly?
After leaving Mike Lank's, I went home, correct?
And you arrived at your house at 6:34, correct?
According to the paper.
What about according to your memory?
I don't remember exact times.
Mr. Jackson, is this a good place to take a break?
is.
Do
I'm
you
about
have a
to shift
while
gears.
more? Okay.
Yes.
All right, jurors, we will take our morning recess. 15, 20 minutes, we'll see you back. And this will be again if we just go
Break this way, jurors.
Here we still got a ways to go. We're at 156. And so this goes on till it's like 1:15 Central Time where she got off the stand. So what I will do is I'll have part 2 of today's hearing tomorrow night and cover it then. Probably about the same time, around 9 o'clock Central Time. Generally 8 to 10 is the time I'm going to try to target for these night recaps. And meanwhile, though, if you guys have some questions, let's cover those questions now. There's so many questions here. I can't play this and also get to your questions. And that's why I've been playing them, putting the questions up on the screen quicker, because I'm not answering them, a lot of them, but I want you as the audience to see them. Either the questions or comments. A lot of good insights you all have to bring to the table. Mimi Cool Whip, you're asking, are they purposely throwing off the jury with the 227 units in different ways? Testimony starts at 227. Testimony pages 227. I think that's just a coincidence. So I wouldn't read anything into that. Miranda, you're asking, how can this case not be dismissed due to lack of witness credibility? Well, the prosecution gets to present their case, and at the end of the government's presentation, the defense could move for a directed verdict to have the hold on a second.
Ms. McCabe.
And what happens in those situations, the judge looks at a motion like that by the defense to see if there's enough evidence to go to the jury that allows them to find it beyond reasonable doubt. And if the judge thinks there's not enough evidence to go to the jury for beyond reasonable doubt because it's just not there, then the judge could do a direct verdict and find Karen not guilty of some or all the charges. Judges is really never do that. I've never seen it. And so it's extremely rare, especially on a murder case. A judge is not going to sit there and say, well, I don't think they've proven it on a murder charge. They're going to want to let it go to the jury because they don't want to be accused of letting some murder get off. And so anyway, it's sort of the politics of it all. I just have never seen that really get you any mileage. And so they could ask for that, but it's not going to matter, especially with this judge. It definitely wouldn't matter with this judge. Well, you're saying Arca should never grab 23,000 from Karen's defense. They're just a business entity that already done the work for the feds. That did not require them to testify in a state court. So the fact they came and testified and they did such a phenomenal job, then their credibility is not damaged because they got paid that. They just testified what they had concluded in their investigation and testing before the defense even knew them. They didn't even know who Karen Reed was when they did these tests. They didn't even know anything about this case. So they're completely neutral, independent, unbiased evaluators and experts. So the fact that the defense wants to hire them after they've already concluded their work, and even the fact they're doing rework now or new things to rebut the government's new expert, instead of that Trooper Paul, then it's just not an issue. And I think their credibility speaks for itself. Spencer, you're saying her being defensive is so guilty. If she was innocent, she would just answer the questions with no problem. Yeah, what's her to be so evasive and sneaky about? She just looks so bad as a witness. It's really bad. If you compare it to trial 1 versus trial 2, complete night and day different personality, mannerisms, all that kind of stuff. And she's not credible in the first one. She's really terribly incredible, unbelievable on this second one. Yeah, I mean, they're not doing this for charity. Experts need to get paid. And to come and testify for Karen Reed here, maybe they'll charge another 23 or 50,000 or something like that. They're doing more testing, so maybe the bill will be $100,000 or $200,000. But that's what they do. They do it for a living. They do it every day of the week. So it's just routine business for them, and they're highly capable. T.S. Jackson, do I believe Chloe was caged, chained up, or maybe didn't survive the event since no one seems to remember her earlier that morning? She probably was taken away. And yeah, she might have been rehomed or could even been killed. We just won't know the truth on that. It's not going to come out of this trial anyway. But very suspicious that they admit that she was rehomed some months later. Yeah, ARCA, I've heard that. I haven't seen the actual contract, but they're paid $500,000 to do their assessment evaluation. They had to look at like 13 different areas, so it wasn't like something they just do in a couple hours. I saw some question like, does Hank realize that he's lost his case? You know, I think he's going to put on an act, but any lawyer knows this is a loser case. I think he signed up to this before he realized what a loser case it is, and whatever he's given as a reward and for money, maybe he just needed the money and he's willing to do it for that reason. But Jessica Eden, I think she was euthanized. You know, if she got rehomed somewhere, I heard it was in Maine, but how do we even know that that's the same dog? Is there any proof it's the same dog? Breenan, is the door to the FBI open? Not sure what you mean by that. We don't know if they've closed their investigation, and they probably wouldn't say it if they had. And they probably wouldn't tell the Morrissey office because that's the one they were investigating. So they definitely have a lot of information that makes that whole Morrissey office and the Canton Police Department look very, very suspicious. Yeah, sure. You're saying the defense couldn't say you hired ARC in the last trial. Can they now say they was hired by another law enforcement agency? They sure better, because that's like a massive, massive loss for the defense if they can't speak the truth on who hired them. The credibility of ARCA needs to come out, who they have as clients, and the fact that the feds hired them to investigate whether John O'Keefe could be killed by Karen's car is a massive, massive big deal. And it really should have killed the case right then and there, but politics has interfered in this. It's not about justice. It's about targeting someone that allows the guilty people off. Christine, DOJ paid ARCA to do the testing of the evidence. Kerenstein's hired them to testify about the evidence they tested, and the Commonwealth had the same opportunity. The findings didn't benefit their case. Well, the prosecution is also supposed to, do justice, so they could have called them as well. But as we all know, they said it's really impossible. They couldn't say that in trial, that it's impossible for Karen to have hit and killed John O'Keefe. But they said it's not consistent with that happening instead. So it really is watered down what their true opinions are. Let's see, Barrett. When is it next week? Do not know. That can always change. I've not heard any inside story on that. The prosecution can always change it up as well. I think they're not going to have as many witnesses as a lot of us may expect. They have some new expert that's going to come out, a couple different experts. But as far as like these other folks that are in the house and whatnot, I think they're going to try to streamline them, or they may not even use them. I mean, especially if he's bombing with all these other witnesses, and then he's going to bring in Brian Albert Higgins. I mean, this is like Unbelievable having to prop this garbage in a court of law and representing it as Karen is guilty. Salem, every time you hear about an ice cream truck, you think of the FBI. Yeah, that comment about the ice cream truck and the FBI by Jen McCabe 2 days ago, that's something else. Freebird, could these new lies to change the timeline give the feds a reason to open the investigation? I don't. Who says it's been closed? I wouldn't say it's been closed. We don't know that. There's no reliable information. Yeah, I agree with Jennifer Rank. There's no way the police officer rehomed a dangerous dog. They most likely put the dog down. If it bit people, most cities they have ordinances that require the dog to be put down. So I that's probably what happened. But who knows? Leslie says the FBI wanted them to believe the case is closed. They let their guard down and worked on Jen. Yeah, I mean, they can always do that kind of ruse if they wanted to. R.J. Smith, did I notice a significant increase in the number of and frequency of I'm sorry from Jen McCabe as she was confronted with increasingly damning evidence of collusion? Absolutely. She's acting so much unlike her first one where she was aggressive and brazen in her attitude and demeanor. Now she's acting very calm and very cooperative and trying to be very sweet. Just a complete different makeover, personality makeover and demeanor makeover. Rosemary Gallagher, you're saying that audit team said they're still on ongoing investigation. Yeah. Ellie Starr, Karen is a warrior. Yeah, I mean, consider the stuff she's gone through, both physically, mentally, emotionally, and legally, and financially, and all these different ways. So she's got remarkable courage and intestinal fortitude. River Birch, wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall at the McCabe house after her atrocious testimony? Atrocious is a good word to say about it. Yeah, it definitely was. Denise Hall, Chloe sent 2 people to the hospital, women to the hospital for bites there on the witness list. That's good. Writes on the trial itself is more evidence for the feds. Yeah, that is something I'm sure they could use to see how this shifting timeline works. Flightless, I was frustrated AJ didn't ask Jen how she was so certain the investigation was closed, meaning the FBI investigation. I want to know. Yeah, that would have been an interesting question to ask her. Jen Meeks, they're also allowing Brian Higgins and Brian Albert to be third-party culprits in this trial, but judges and allowing Colin to be a third-party culprit. Well, she's not allowing it for sure. It's still remains to be seen because the two Brians, she's saying it's got to be developed at trial. It's barely legally enough in her mind from what has been shown now. So they may not get to prove it, but as far as Colin, I mean, it could be something that happens instantly. There's no bad blood history between them. Supposedly, there were some allegations that John O'Keefe had made against Colin that he reported to the Canton Police Department. Don't know if that's true or not, but in any event, having to name a third-party culprit, I don't think is necessary for the defense at all. I think the defense can see that something else happened other than Kieran's vehicle hitting John that killed him. So Clayton John, yeah, the feds could pop up a year from now and take him to court. I don't know, root beer float if the feds are in the courtroom, but that would be very interesting. I hope they are. I hope the ones that showed up to her house were in the courtroom the last couple days that she testified. They do have prosecution to prosecute, the FBI, the feds, pretty much any murder. They can find something that involves interstate commerce. Tall glass, why do I think AJ didn't preserve his right to recall Jen McCabe? Well, I mean, with that kind of damage she did to the prosecution's case today, I wouldn't want to recall her. I mean, this is bad. It's really bad. She could really not have done worse. I mean, it was just that bad. Clayton John, what's stopping the jury from seeing this case online? I don't think anything. I think a lot of them are looking at it. Probably also the younger the jurors are, the more inclined they're going to be thinking, I'm just not going to tell anybody, but I'm going to do all kinds of searching on social media and Google searches and stuff like that about this case. So that's what I expect is happening. T.S. Jackson, I do think she's on something. I don't know what, but something to calm her down. She has sort of like a flat effect. My father's alibi, I think it was ridiculous for Jen to take credit for the closing of the FBI case. Yeah, we can get to that tomorrow night when I cover the rest of her cross. Okay, RJ Smith, you're saying your background is animal welfare and you live and work in Massachusetts. I'm very familiar with the laws. Did they with documented bite histories? I bet my life that Chloe was euthanized. Yeah, I'm sure that was the case. Tanya Dorling, do I think they have geofencing showing Colin didn't leave at 12:10? I hope they got it. That would be nice to see. HB 24-mile-an-hour in reverse is absolutely absurd. I agree. I don't think it could have gone that fast, even if it was a dry pavement. I think there's actually mechanical things in the transmission that prevent it from going that fast, as well as the axles or wheels, the wheel assembly. No, Nanette. Is it a crime to remain silent in the face of FBI questioning, not lie, just go quiet? You don't have any requirement to talk unless you're subpoenaed, and then you can be. They don't have any federal laws that can force you to testify that I've seen. I know certain states like Florida have laws that can force you to testify. We can also do it in the military if you have a general that gives you an order to testify. And there's also immunity protections on that. I haven't seen one that's come up in a federal case so far. Turquoise blue, are people allowed to testify they're on some sort of drug? Well, there's no drug testing before they get on the stand, so there's no screening whatsoever. So yeah, they could do that. And you could ask them about it if you wanted to. If they're a witness adverse to you and they're looking like Jen, you could ask them that. A prosecutor would not be permitted to ask a defendant that. JMS. I thought jurors were monitored. Yeah, I do think they're monitoring them to see what they put on social media and stuff like that, but they're not, they don't have search warrants or anything like that, or to access their IP address and see what stuff they're looking at. That's not happening. They're just monitoring them, I would say, their social media like they did before they got selected on the jury. So, okay. Lawyer, nurse, and I bet the McCabe's are definitely watched the testimony of everyone. Yeah, I'm sure they're all huddled around their phones and computers looking at what's going on, even though they're not supposed to. Alex Perkins, you're glad Jen. you th- Oh, you're glad. I think she did so poorly. I'm also worried about the judge's bias will influence the jury to convict. Shockingly, they won't allow the FBI to be used or be mentioned. I think you mean horrifying. How's it legal to leave out the FBI? Well, you got a judge that's not concerned about a fair trial for Karen Reed, so that's what happens. But there's plenty of reversible error. This thing would be busted on appeal if she gets convicted. Robin Heinley, I think they need to delay an hour because they wanted to make sure he would die. I think they put him out there at 3:30 in the Ford Edge because, of course, if he lives, he can turn them in. That's what a lot of people are thinking. I think people on the jury will think that as well. HE thinks it's Xanax and Adderall. Rosemary Gallagher, BC, that would be Boston College law students are getting a great education on what not to do. All 12 students are working on the defense side. Well, it's not just Boston College. I think it's like Harvard Law and one other law school there as well. Clayton, even if I didn't like the person, I'd dislike trampling on someone's rights to a fair trial. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People that are anti Karen Reed, I don't get it. If they look at the case, have they actually looked at the case and see the way the prosecution's acting towards the defense and also the way the judge is treating Karen in the defense? If you're okay with that, you have some serious problems, I would say. You do not understand justice. You certainly don't understand the Constitution. All right, I'm going to take one more question. It's almost going on midnight here, Central Time. Yeah, tomorrow night I'm going to cover this issue about the 212-27 or 227. That was a huge deal, I thought, today as well. Born a Hawkeye. When a defendant chooses to testify, the judge will ask if they consumed alcohol or drugs. Well, they ask if the judge will do a query if they, but I've never seen it where they ask about whether they consumed drugs or alcohol in making their decision to testify. It could be a bad decision to testify if it's like Charlie Adelson, but all right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead close it out for tonight. See you all tomorrow night if you want to join, and we'll cover the rest of her testimony that happened today, and we'll go from there. So you all have a great, safe Saturday. Take care.